Have you ever been in a moment when fear felt louder than faith? When everything around you seemed uncertain, yet something deep inside refused to give up? Not because you were strong, but because hope would not leave you alone. The Bible is filled with moments like that. Moments when nothing looks dramatic on earth, yet everything is moving in heaven. Moments when silence hides decisions that will change history forever. When people think about the birth of Jesus, they often imagine peace, warmth, and calm. A quiet night, gentle light, soft songs. But what if that picture is only part of the truth? Because while a child was being born in Bethlehem, something unseen was happening. Not a war of swords and armies, but a conflict of obedience and resistance. A hidden struggle where darkness tried to stop a promise before it could take its first breath. This story is not about noise. It is about what happens when God moves quietly, and nothing can stop him. Welcome to Faith in English Bible Stories. This channel exists for people who want to slow down and listen again. People who believe the Bible still speaks today. Not in a rush, not in confusion, but with clarity and purpose. Here, every story is told with calm words, clear meaning, and a rhythm that helps both your faith and your English grow together. As you listen, allow your mind to slow. Imagine the narrow streets of Bethlehem, the cold night air, the tired steps of ordinary people who had no idea they were standing inside one of the most important moments in human history. Because God often chooses unnoticed places to begin unstoppable plans. He does not always arrive with thunder. Sometimes he arrives quietly, so only the attentive will recognize him. This story is for those who sense that something more is happening beneath the surface of Scripture. For those who believe that behind familiar verses, there are deeper truths waiting to be discovered. If this opening already speaks to you, this channel is for people who want to see what others miss in the Bible. Stay with us, and if these stories help you slow down, reflect, and grow in faith, subscribe and continue this journey with us. Because sometimes the smallest beginning carries the greatest purpose, and sometimes what looks like silence is actually heaven moving. The night the world ignored, but heaven watched Bethlehem was not a city people watched. It was a place people passed through, small, ordinary, and easily ignored. No palaces rose above its streets, no armies guarded its gates, no scholars waited for history to begin there. Yet this is where God chose to act. A decree forced movement across the land. Names were counted, lives were interrupted. To the empire, it was administration. To heaven, it was alignment. A young woman carried more than a child. She carried a promise spoken long before she was born. A promise that moved quietly, without explanation, without protection, without applause. The journey was not comfortable. There was no guarantee of safety, no assurance of welcome, and when they arrived, nothing changed. No doors opened easily, no space was prepared, no voice announced what was about to happen. The world continued as normal. People slept, animals stirred, lamps dimmed, but heaven did not sleep. This is how God often works. While human systems operate with control and certainty, God moves beneath them with precision and purpose. He enters moments that appear inconvenient, poorly timed, and fragile. Bethlehem looked insignificant, but significance is not measured by attention. It is measured by obedience. God did not choose this place because it was powerful. He chose it because it was available. The tension in this setting is not loud. It is quiet and heavy, a sense that something important is happening, even though no one can explain why. This is the kind of moment many people miss. Because nothing dramatic announces it, no visible threat, no visible victory. Yet the future is being positioned. If you have ever felt that your life looked ordinary while something deeper was forming beneath the surface, This part of the story is speaking directly to you. God does not need perfect conditions. He needs willing hearts and precise timing. And in a place no one expected, at a time no one prepared for, the stage was set. If this setting feels familiar to your own life, write one simple word in the comments. Here. The conflict that never made a sound. Every time God moves to fulfill a promise, resistance follows. Not always in obvious ways. Not always with noise or violence, but always with intention. The conflict surrounding the birth of Jesus was not visible on the surface. There were no clashing armies in Bethlehem, no alarms in the streets, no public declaration that a battle had begun. Yet this was one of the most decisive moments in spiritual history. The threat was not the night, it was not the poverty, it was not the lack of shelter. The real danger was interruption. Fear is most effective when it convinces people to stop obeying, to delay, to doubt, to turn back. Mary had every reason to be afraid. Her future was uncertain, her reputation fragile, her understanding incomplete. Joseph had every reason to walk away. The explanation was impossible, the responsibility overwhelming, the risk personal. And still they continued. This is where the conflict sharpens, not between angels and demons, but inside the human heart. Because faith is rarely tested by what we can see. It is tested by what we are asked to trust without explanation. Darkness does not always attack directly. Sometimes it waits, hoping obedience will collapse under pressure, hoping exhaustion will speak louder than conviction, hoping fear will do the work. The silence of that night was heavy. No signs, no reassurance, no confirmation that everything would be fine. Only movement forward. This is the moment where many stories end, where people pause, hesitate, or choose safety over obedience. But this story continues because faith did not retreat. The conflict was real, even if unseen, because the arrival of Jesus meant the beginning of the end for darkness. And resistance always increases when an end approaches. Yet the most powerful response to opposition is not force, it is faithfulness. Mary did not fight. Joseph did not argue, they obeyed. And sometimes obedience is the greatest act of courage. If you have ever moved forward while feeling unsure, unsupported, or afraid, you already understand this conflict. Because the hardest battles are not the ones we fight outwardly, but the ones we endure quietly. And in that quiet endurance, the story moves closer to its turning point. Light entered the world without a sound. The miracle did not arrive with noise. No thunder shook the sky. No fire fell from heaven. No crowd gathered to witness it. And yet, this was one of the greatest interventions in history. While the world slept, heaven acted. Not by destroying darkness in a single moment, but by introducing light where darkness could not remain. A child was born, weak in appearance, dependent, silent. This is how God chose to intervene. Not by removing danger from the world, but by entering the world himself. Not by overpowering human systems, but by fulfilling his promise within them. The miracle was not only that Jesus was born, the miracle was how he was born. At the exact time, in the exact place, through the exact people who were willing to trust without full understanding. Every detail mattered. The lack of space did not stop the plan. The absence of comfort did not delay the purpose. The quietness of the moment did not weaken its power. God's intervention was precise, not dramatic. Angels did not appear to kings. They appeared to shepherds. Men who lived on the margins, awake in the night, attentive to what others ignored. This is important, because heaven often speaks where humility is listening, and miracles often unfold where expectation is low. The birth itself looked fragile, but fragility was not weakness, it was strategy. Light entered gently so it could remain permanently. Darkness had no answer for this kind of power, because darkness understands force, but it does not understand surrender. God did not confront evil head-on that night. He bypassed it, fulfilled the promise anyway, and secured the future without announcing the victory. This is how divine intervention often works in our lives as well. Not with instant solutions, not with visible proof, but with quiet movement that cannot be reversed once it begins. If you have ever looked back and realized that God was working while you thought nothing was happening, you understand this miracle. The night in Bethlehem remained quiet, but history had shifted, and from that moment forward, nothing would ever be the same. The lesson hidden in God's quiet strategy. When the night passed and the moment was over, nothing on the surface looked different. Bethlehem did not change its rhythm. The world did not pause. Power remained in the same hands. And yet, everything had changed. This is the lesson hidden inside the birth of Jesus. God's greatest works do not always announce themselves. They reveal themselves over time. The story teaches us that faith is rarely rewarded with immediate clarity. Mary did not receive a full explanation. Joseph did not receive guarantees. The shepherds did not receive status or recognition. What they received was responsibility. Responsibility to protect what God had entrusted. Responsibility to move when instructed. Responsibility to believe that obedience matters, even when the outcome is invisible. This is where many people struggle. We want faith to feel powerful. We want God's work to look impressive. We want signs that others can see. But the birth of Jesus teaches a different truth. God values faithfulness over visibility. He values obedience over understanding. He values trust over control. The world often measures success by speed and scale. God measures it by alignment. The lesson is not that God avoids difficulty. The lesson is that difficulty does not cancel God's purpose. A lack of comfort did not stop the plan. A lack of recognition did not delay the promise. A lack of human power did not weaken the outcome. This story quietly reminds us that God's work often begins where human confidence ends. If you are waiting for perfect conditions before trusting God, this story challenges that idea. If you are waiting for certainty before obeying, this story gently asks you to reconsider. Faith is not the absence of fear. It is the decision to move forward despite it. The birth of Jesus reveals that God's strategy is patience. His weapon is humility. His victory is inevitable, even when it is unseen. And this lesson does not belong only to the past. It belongs to anyone who is walking through uncertainty right now. If this reflection speaks to your own season, write one simple word in the comments: faith. The peace that follows an unseen victory. As this story comes to a close, nothing ends abruptly. That is the nature of God's work. It continues quietly, even after the moment has passed. The night in Bethlehem returned to silence. The streets looked the same. The world kept moving forward, unaware that everything had shifted beneath its feet. And that is often how faith works in our lives. God does not always announce his victories. He plants them. He allows them to grow slowly, steadily, and deeply, until one day we realize that what once felt small has reshaped everything. The birth of Jesus reminds us that God does not rush. He does not panic. He does not depend on perfect conditions or human approval. He fulfills his promises with precision, patience, and purpose. If you are walking through a season that feels quiet, overlooked, or uncertain, remember this night. Remember that heaven can be fully active while earth seems still. Remember that obedience in silence is never wasted. Faith is not always about dramatic change. Sometimes it is about steady trust. Sometimes it is about continuing forward when no one is applauding. This story invites you to see your own life differently, to recognize that God may already be working beneath what you can see, to believe that your faithfulness today may carry consequences far beyond this moment. These stories are shared For people who want faith explained, not rushed. For those who want to understand Scripture with calm reflection, depth, and clarity. If that describes you, you belong here. Stay with us, and if these stories help you slow down, reflect, and grow, this channel exists for you. Subscribe, not out of habit, but because you want to keep seeing what others miss in the Bible. Before you go, take a quiet moment. Breathe. And remember that the same God who worked silently in Bethlehem is still at work today. May peace settle in your heart. May faith remain steady in your spirit. And may you trust that even in silence, God is moving.